Hello, thank you for joining us today for our Texas Holocaust Remembrance Week program. I am Jessica Hanshaw, Education and Curations Manager with the Holocaust Memorial Museum of San Antonio. We'll begin today's presentations with a few words from Texas State Senator Jose Menendez before we introduce our speaker.
Hi, I'm State Senator Jose Menendez, and I'd like to welcome you to Holocaust Remembrance Week of 2022. I am so pleased you're joining students from across Texas and learning about the Holocaust. I also want to say thank you to the Texas Holocaust Genocide and Anti-Semitism Advisory Commission, to the Holocaust Memorial Museum of San Antonio, and to all of the partners who've made these educational resources available to schools across the whole state of Texas. In 2019, State Representative Richard Raymond and I collaborated to pass Senate Bill 1828. The bill calls on the governor of the state to designate a Holocaust Remembrance Week in order to educate students about the Holocaust and inspire a sense of responsibility to recognize and uphold human value that helps prevent future atrocities. The bill passed both the House and Senate unanimously. That tells you how important this effort is to all of us. Senate Bill 1828 was made possible because of the persistence of local upstanders who call themselves the Four Ladies in a Car, because of their frequent trips to Austin on a mission to have a state-designated Holocaust Remembrance Week in Texas. They understand that it is a solemn duty to remember the Holocaust and to foster communities of awareness, care, and kindness. You're going to learn the stories of survivors of the Holocaust and about the upstanders whose compassionate actions saved many lives. You too can be heroes by speaking up whenever you witness injustice around you, or create change by working with your neighbors and local leaders to improve your community. I invite you to continue learning year-round about the heroic acts of upstanding. And just like the Four Ladies in a Car, please reach out to your elected officials in order to make a difference. You're always welcome to reach out to me at 210-733-6604. And I want to thank you for joining me today. And I hope you share everything you learned throughout this observation of the Holocaust Remembrance Week with everyone you meet. Have a great day.
As a reminder, we will have the Q&A and chat boxes open and available during the presentation. So if you have any questions or comments for our presenter, please enter them in those spaces. I am pleased to introduce our speaker for today, Zachary Lambert. Zachary Lambert is currently a teen librarian with the San Antonio Public Library. She graduated with her master's in library science in the fall of 2019 and has been working with the San Antonio Public Library since January of 2020. Zachary is passionate about providing open access to materials, especially for teens, so they can see various parts of their identities reflected and validated through different materials. Working in a public library has allowed Zachary the ability to merge two things she loves, working closely with teens and public service. Zachary's hobbies include taking naps, laughing at TikTok until her stomach hurts, and exploring her love for the culinary arts. Welcome, Zachary.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And welcome to everyone else. I'm very excited to be here. Give me a moment so I can share my screen with you all. Alrighty, so I know that Jessica mentioned there will be a chat box available. I am unable to see that, but she will be moderating that for me. There are going to be a few places within the presentation that I'm going to ask for some feedback or for some answers or opinions about a few things. So if you are in a classroom and you have one person moderating that chat from your end, please feel free to plug in a few answers. And if you have any questions, we can save those till the end. I should have about 10 to 15 minutes left for questions. And if it goes past that, I'm also available to follow up with any teachers or classrooms that may have further inquiries that they would like me to come and talk about. So like Jessica said, I am a teen services librarian with the San Antonio Public Library. I have been here for 2 years. Today, we're going to talk about intellectual freedom and censorship and touch on how those two things play into the Holocaust and how governments during that time used censorship to further their own agendas. Okay, so what you can expect from this presentation is to gain a general understanding of what censorship is and what its different forms may present as. I also want you to gain just a general understanding of how Nazis used book burning as a form of censorship and what that looked like when they were active in Germany. And I also want to teach you a little bit about San Antonio Public Library and all of the resources we have, especially for the teen population, because that's who I work with. My hope for this presentation is that you are curious about something that you learn and you want to do more research and you have more questions and you have more conversations with those people around you, whether it's friends, family, in the classroom. I believe that when we know better, we're able to do better, and having access to information can help us expand on our knowledge and help us grow our opinions and really hone in on what our values are and be able to stand up for those things that we believe in. The scope of censorship is rather large, and our time together today is really short. So because of that, I'm going to be focusing on a very specific piece of censorship and how it relates to libraries in specific. And most of that is going to be in the public library realm, though there are a lot of crossovers between public and school libraries. So we'll be talking about libraries and library materials specifically as they relate to censorship and intellectual freedom. Censorship is a really complex topic. It's also one that is often controversial. You may hear about it in the news, you may hear about it at school. People are very passionate about it from both sides. And it's often something that can be a sticky subject because people have, really strong opinions when it comes to censorship on both sides of the spectrum. So this presentation is designed to provide you with information so you can develop your own feelings and opinions about censorship and maybe have conversations with your friends and see how y'all feel about these things that you're going to learn today. And, moving forward, those opinions that you have may even evolve into something more. The coverage of censorship that will be provided through this presentation is not at all exhaustive, so I encourage you to do more research if you have further questions after you learn what you learned today. And I encourage everyone in this presentation to have further conversations in your classroom with your teachers, especially as censorship relates to Holocaust in this Remembrance Week. So when you think of the word censorship, what are some things that come to mind? Have you heard this word? Is it something that's familiar for you? If you would like to take a few minutes to talk about it with your classes, and Jessica, I'm going to ask if anyone responds in the chat box, if you can read some of those things out for me. I'll give you all about 15 seconds to do that.
We don't have anything yet, but again, you can use the chat box, or you can also open the Q&A box as well to enter, either location.
All right, awesome, thank you. If there's any teachers on this call as well that are moderating the chat for their classrooms, if you want to plug in anything that maybe y'all have spoken about in the classroom as far as censorship is concerned, or how your students understand censorship, or even if this is the first time you've heard the word censorship, that's really good information to know as well. So for those of you who are new to censorship, this information, again, is very brief, but it should be a really good introduction into what censorship is. So when I think of censorship, I often think of, things that maybe I wanted to watch when I was younger that my mom wouldn't let me watch. That was a form of censorship, right? For whatever her reasons were. So censorship is not always a bad thing. It's not always a good thing, right? There's different reasons and different ways that censorship can play out. And so those are the things that I want you to think about through this presentation. How censorship maybe has an active role in your life, whether you're the one that is censoring things from people, whether that be your friends or family, or if maybe someone in your life is censoring things from you. And maybe we've never even thought about things going on in our lives as a form of censorship. But I think that with what you learned today, you can start to recognize how censorship is playing a role in your life, whether you're aware of that or not. So censorship is when individuals, a group of people, or government entities find a material, whether it's books or movies or a play or some other type of written or spoken material that they deem as offensive and they believe that no one should have access to. So this could look different for different people. We all have different opinions, different feelings about things. Because of that, there are some things that some individuals or groups of people find really offensive that other individuals or groups of people don't. So folks who are looking to censor materials often ask that these materials be either edited, removed from access altogether, or restricted to certain groups of people. Restriction can look like maybe this shouldn't be available to a certain age group, right? So we see that a lot with kids and with teens, that they feel like the content of the material shouldn't be accessible to someone of a certain age. So this can happen a lot with books that are on school reading lists. I know that a lot of the books that were on school reading lists when I was a teenager are books that have historically been challenged and even banned in some public spaces. They can be challenged by various people, by various groups of people, and by the government. And that can be to an individual library, or that can be in a wider arena, such as like, if they're looking at a full school district removing books from the library, or if they go to, an entire county and want books pulled from a library, that it just depends on what they're looking at. So there may be a parent or someone who is really passionate about not having a book available to a classroom or on a reading list, and that would be an individual. And we see with groups of people also, maybe like a parent body that's going to go to the school and share their concerns about a certain type of material, or go to a library and share their concerns about maybe a service that the library is offering. We see that happening with materials and with library services. People who attempt to censor materials believe that there's a distinction between what is right and wrong, and that people should have access to the materials in question based on their belief system. But we know that not everyone shares the same beliefs, so that's where censorship can get really tricky. One of the reasons why it can be so tricky is because the people who are trying to censor certain materials believe that they're doing something that's good or something that's just. But we know, again, that that's not going to be the case for everyone. Something that's good for someone may not be good for another person. So intellectual freedom is the flip side of censorship, and it is considered to be the right of every individual to both seek and receive information from all points of view without restriction. It provides for free access to all expressions of ideas through which any of all sides of questions, cause, or movement may be explored. The way that libraries, both school and public libraries, support intellectual freedom is by providing access to the community to a variety of different materials. And librarians themselves support intellectual freedom by helping folks who come into the library find the items that they need or want or are interested in without judging them. So it's our job just to connect you to the materials that you're looking for without having any judgment about what that material is. Whether it aligns with our own personal beliefs or not does not matter. Our job is to help you get to the things that you need. The impact of censorship and not connecting community members to things that they need can have a ripple effect. It removes the ability for people to access information. And sometimes censorship isn't so obvious. It can look like teachers refraining from using a book in their classroom for a particular reason that aligns with their own personal values, or a librarian who won't put a certain book on display because they're worried that there may be a public complaint about that book. And it could even look like government not sharing pertinent information for a myriad of reasons. That could be because they think that they're protecting people by not sharing information that people should know. Whether they're doing that out of a good place or not, that's still considered censorship. So whether censorship is intentional or not, it's the suppression of or withholding of information. And it can be particularly harmful for young people who are still learning about the world, who are still forming opinions, and who are still seeking new information about things that they don't know yet. So books are challenged in school and public libraries every year by groups of people, individuals, and government officials. Annually, libraries across America celebrate Banned Book Week. This may be something that you've seen in your own school library, or if you go to the public library, you may have seen a Banned Book Week display up. And in those displays, they feature books that have been challenged or even banned in some spaces throughout the years, right? So this has been going on for a really long time. This year's Banned Book Week is in September from the 18th to the 24th. So if you haven't ever checked that out at your local library or your school library, I do encourage you to check out those books. I think you'll see some books that may surprise you on the display. During this week, we place special attention on books that are currently being challenged because we want people to know that these items are being challenged and to be aware of what is going on in a larger scope. So according to bannedbookweeks.org, the top 10 reasons that books are challenged by different people or different groups are the ones that you see in front of you. So they're either materials that contain violence, profanity, nudity, suicide, racism, some type of sexually explicit material, sex education, LGBTQ content, drug and alcohol use, or because of religious viewpoints. There are other reasons why books are challenged and are banned, but these are going to be the top 10 reasons that we see reoccurring over and over. So some of the other reasons that people use to challenge a certain book being available, whether it's in a library or in another space, would be some of the other ones that you see here. So nudity, they have mental illness present in the content. There's offensive language. They talk about gender identity because of a political bias. So there's quite a few reasons why people bring their challenges to the forefront. All of this is tracked through the American Library Association. They have an Office of Intellectual Freedom who annually deals with all of the challenge books and puts out a list of challenge books, which I'm going to present to you as well. So this is the list from 2020. As you can see, there are a few books on here that I know that may be familiar to high school students, potentially even middle school students. The top book, George by Alex Gino, was, I believe, produced in 2017, and it has been on the list every single year since it was released. That is a little kid's book. The rest of them, I know The Hate U Give is on some reading lists across the city. So that may be something you may be familiar with. Maybe you read it in your class. And you can see the reasons under each of the titles why a person or a group of people have challenged these books. And these are the most challenged. So that means that there are several people that have come forward to try and challenge and ban these books from different libraries, whether it's a school library or a public library. So moving on to censorship and what that looks like in Germany, especially as it relates to the Holocaust. Nazi Germany and Hitler's Nazi used censorship in a very specific way to control what was going on and to control the narrative of Germany at the time. So there are several ways in which they utilized the power of censorship. They were very specific in shutting down newspapers that were not covering things that they wanted to be covered, or putting out information that they thought aligned with their belief system. If they didn't completely shut those papers down, they took them over and made it their own newspaper, so that that newspaper was then releasing the narrative that they wanted people to have access to. They also took control of what was printed and aired through the radio as well as the newspapers or on the news. They controlled the content of letters sent home by German soldiers. So if soldiers were writing home, that was something that they would read through and control the narrative that was being sent home, so that the letters that were being delivered to their families told a very specific story, right? The story that they wanted them to tell, not necessarily what may have been the truth at the time, or may have been what someone was feeling, but just this narrative that the Nazi Party wanted their time in Germany to align with. And most notably, which is what we're going to talk about next, is book banning and book burning. So I know a lot of times when we talk about censorship as it relates to the Nazis in Germany, we think about book burning. It's something that we hear about a lot. It's a reoccurring theme that we've seen come up in different novels throughout time. And it's something that we learn about in school as far as books and the Nazis. So there was one particular event in Nazi Germany that was the larger event as far as book burning is concerned, and that happened in May of 1933. And it was college students in different universities across Germany that got together and they organized a huge book burning event that took place across Germany. So different universities across all of Germany that evening burned what they believed to be up to 25,000 books. And all of those books were items that they deemed un-German or that they believed didn't align with what they wanted people to have access to. So these books could have been targeted because of the content of the book or because of the person who wrote the book. There were several books that were burned during these events. Below, I have two pictures that are from the event. They are very old, so they're not the best quality, but you can see how big the fires were and how many books from the universities were being burned. And this was just in two places. So there were several other places that were doing the exact same thing. So it's really important for you all to know that libraries and librarians take censorship very seriously, and that we have policies around our book collections and how we purchase books and how we deal with materials and how we approach things to make sure that we're able to give everybody in the public as much as possible. So we don't ever want to censor the type of materials that people are looking for or they have access to. I have a video clip that I'd like to share about how our library in particular responds to censorship. And I'm going to share that with y'all right now.
Commercial push for banning books continues, this time hitting our public libraries across Texas.
News 4's Alejandra Guzman working for you, and she reached out to our local library to get you the answers that you want to know. Are they planning to review their books?
I read this at school, which I really liked.
As 10-year-old Riley Martinez looks for a book to read, her mom isn't too far behind.
The Secret Garden, The Chronicles of Narnia, Robin Hood, and Little Women.
books the fifth grader has read as part of her school curriculum.
I like that she's reading above her age group level because it's pushing her to be interested in books that she necessarily wouldn't pick up at this age.
But as books continue to be a hot button issue across Texas, 43-year-old Crystal Martinez says she's not worried about the books her daughter has access to either at school or at her public library.
If there's something that I see that she's interested in, I'm always going to read what the book is about.
Don't be like scared to start reading a book and like just have fun with it.
Right now, the push to ban certain books from schools is now spilling into our public libraries.
And let the parent and the child together decide, what's appropriate for them. And that book may never really be appropriate for your child, but, the family across the street, it may be exactly the book that their child needs and is looking for.
It all comes after Republican Representative Matt Krause called for the review and removal of 850 books from Texas public school libraries. Assistant Director of Public Services at the San Antonio Public Library, Dale McNeil, says with nearly 2 million books, there's something for everyone, but
the library isn't endorsing the material that's in the books in the library at all. The library is making them available.
Across Texas, residents are calling on books to be reviewed and removed from shelves, including Victoria, just 2 hours southeast of us, making us wonder how our local libraries are responding.
Are you guys planning to do a review of the books available for children and young adults?
No.
As our public libraries say, they have not heard from city leaders urging or requesting a review either. They're asking parents to monitor what their children are reading. Crystal Martinez, who takes her daughter to the library frequently, says a partnership between the two can help.
I think that for a public library, the parent should be able to put some kind of system in place that would say whether a child could check out a certain book or not until they reach a certain age where they're mature enough to make those decisions on their own.
Now, tonight, it's very important to make it clear that our local libraries are not going to be closing their doors to review any of the books on the shelves. They say, parents, if you do happen to have a concern with the book your child is reading, you can submit a request to review that book. We have more information on how you can do that on our website, news4sa.com. Back to you.
Controversial push for.
All right, so as you can see there, the San Antonio Public Library does have policies in place as far as our books and media are concerned. And if there is ever a concern, then people are able to ask about those concerns and submit their own challenges to materials that we have. And those things are taken very seriously. We do have a collection development team that responds to all of those inquiries, and it's something that's available on our website. So if you're interested in checking that out, you can find that at mysapple.org and look for further information too about our collection. We have tons of books, and there's something for everyone, like Del McNeil was saying. There may be a book that may not be appropriate or right for you, but it could be for another student or a neighbor or someone else that you may know. So because of that, it's really important that we provide access to a lot of different materials for a lot of different people, because we're not all the same. Next to the video, I have a little graphic from one of my favorite children's authors. Her name is Elise Gravel. And I like this picture because it shows the difference in uniformity and diversity. And if all books were the same, that wouldn't be any fun. There wouldn't be material that was different to fill the needs of what our community actually looks like, right? Which is a diverse community. We all have different backgrounds, different experiences, different identities. And because of that, we're all looking for different things. I personally believe that diversity is one of the most beautiful parts of life, and that there's a book or a CD or a vinyl record that is right for everyone out there. And just because something doesn't work for you doesn't mean that it's not going to work for someone else. So I wanted to share a little bit about the San Antonio Public Library and our resources. This is Smarty, who is the library's mascot. So the library's mission and values is to change lives through the transformative power of information, imagination, and ideas. If you are a Bexar County resident, you qualify for a free library card, and you can check out books, ebooks, DVDs, CDs, and vinyl. If you are not a Bexar County resident, but you would still like to come to a San Antonio Bexar County Library, you can access our services like computers or public programming for free. Currently, all of our public programming is online, but typically when things are safe, we have a ton of programming at all different libraries across the city where you can go in person, and that's for all different age groups. So children's, teens, and adults all have programming. Currently, teen programming happens on the 210 Teen Library Discord. So if you're familiar with Discord, we do have our own server. If you are interested in joining that server, you can find more information about it through mysapple.org. We have different programs every week or every night of the week. So we have a Create Club, we have Teen Time, there's a Dungeons and Dragons Club, there's a Bookworms Club. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's pretty cool. So if you're looking for library programming that you can connect to virtually, you don't have to leave the comfort of your home or wherever you're at, you're more than welcome to join the 210 Library Discord and come see what kind of fun we're having over there. Again, my name is Dacre Lambert, and I am Teen Services Librarian at Schaefer Library. If you have any other follow-up questions that you want to ask me after the conclusion of this presentation, you can contact me via email, and I'm more than happy to help connect you to resources or answers for any questions you may have. And at this time, I will open up for questions regarding their presentation, if anybody has any. Let me open the chat box. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. I don't know how long you want to leave it open for, Jessica, or if I'm just not seeing something. If you see anything, you're more than welcome to read those out as well.
No, we don't see any questions yet. Just as a reminder, you can put a question in the chat, those of you who are watching, or you can use the Q&A chat box. We'll wait about another minute to see if we get any questions. Great. Okay, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to Dacre directly, and she will be happy to help. Again, we want to thank Dacre for being with us today. We also want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for their generous contributions to our programming, including the Texas Holocaust Genocide and Anti-Semitism Advisory Commission. And finally, we want to thank our viewers for being with us today. We hope you'll consider joining us for our programs tomorrow, and we thank you, those of you who've been with us all week. You can learn more information about our future programming on our website at hmmsa.org/THRW. And we also ask that you consider filling out a post-event survey on our website after viewing this presentation. Again, thank you, Dacre, for being with us. Thank you to our viewers. We hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you so